Welcome to Total Review's Early Access Edition, the show where I take a look at games of interest and see if they are worth a purchase. In today's video, I'm going to take a look at Derail Valley Overhauled, a more recent train simulator originally designed for VR gaming, developed by Alt Future. First released in January 2019, Derail Valley is still in early access, but has a quality that makes it possible to do a review on, but with the disclaimer that it is still under development. The premise of the title is to take on the role of an individual who has a job as a railway driver in around 256 square kilometers of varied terrain, with various different types of cargo, and deliver them from location to location. Overhauled, the latest update, contains a whole raft of improvements with new cargo, better physics, a revamped career and new economy. Alt Future were kind enough to supply me a copy for review, and as with every Total Reviews video, I will be taking a look at the different parts of the title and give it a score out of 100, noting both the good and the bad. Before I dive into the title properly, a quick look at the specs required. Available for Windows only at the time of this review, minimum requirements for Derail Valley come in at an Intel i5-7400 or AMD equivalent, 16GB of RAM and an NVIDIA GTX 650 or a GTX 970 for VR. However, recommended specs come in a fair amount higher, with an Intel i7-8700K or better, 24GB of RAM and a GTX 970 or 1080 Ti for VR being stated. The 24GB of RAM is an interesting one, not a figure I've seen often for specifications. Lastly, 12GB of drive space is also required. Now, these requirements are not too bad, as all the recommended specs look at technology that is a few years old, meaning most people should have similar or better. The footage you see on screen has been done with the specs better than recommended, except the processor, which is an overclocked i7-4770K. This works pretty well, but certainly not as smooth as newer, more powerful processors would be. Loading up the game, I was greeted with a tutorial which was extremely simple to go through and covered all the core aspects of the title, one of which is unique for this type of title, and that is of course manuals, which have all the necessary information on them, from shunting charts, controls, locomotive manuals, job information, you name it, it is there. I can understand why it is done, taking it from a VR perspective, but on a flat screen it works just as well and makes this title stand out from many others. I think that part of Derail Valley is fantastic and adds a lot of immersion to it, even outside of VR. The tutorial itself is very well put together and gives you a very good feel for the title within a few minutes, and at the end of it rewards you with a license that will allow you to use the initial small diesel engine that you have used in the tutorial, as well as a license to haul certain types and lengths of train. I am quite happy to say that this was one of the easiest tutorials ever. It does not show you how to do everything, but that is because of how the title works. What it does do is show you how to get yourself going without any trouble, leaving you to figure out the other parts as you come across them. I think that's a really good thing. It gives you more reasons to play. It doesn't tell you, well, this is everything that we have, there you go, now go play with it. It's more like, well, here's enough to get you going, go find the other parts, and I think that is a lot better. My one criticism though would be that the keyboard controls to use the locomotive are not mentioned. I think that when showing a player how to use things in non-VR, keyboard controls would be nice. They did mention it for being able to move from place to place, so it would be nice to have it for your controls. What it does do, however, is show you the importance of one specific part of a mouse, the scroll wheel. This wheel is how you cycle through your different modes on your radio style controller, as well as flip through the pages in the manuals, including the manual that has the controls on it. So, if you are looking to play this on a laptop, you may have some trouble without a connected mouse. As soon as the tutorial was completed, the gate was opened and I was able to go explore the world, and by that I do mean the entire world in Derail Valley. This is a true open world game, and if you wanted to, you could walk around the entire map. This is where one of those little VR tools comes in handy that I was just speaking about, and that is to teleport from place to place by hitting a single key. This is helpful in allowing you to traverse significant amounts of terrain rather quickly, which I found is vital to providing enjoyable gameplay. To give me an idea of all aspects of the title, I decided to play it as though I was playing from scratch. The developers had provided me with a save game file to give me access to everything, but for most of this review I will be looking at it as though I was starting from the very start. The first thing to note is that the moments of amusement that can be had in this title are immense. Though I have yet to tip my train off the side of a cliff and watch my cargo go up in smoke, my departure from the depot did result in my train doing a perfect 180-degree turn. Who needs turntables when you can just straddle the points and then move very slowly? Before trying the title, I had seen a few videos of Derail Valley already, and I knew what could happen, but I have yet to see one like the turn I made. Pretty useful actually, given that the position of the radiator on the train makes a difference to the heat generated due to airflow. In fact, this little bit of attention to detail is absolutely brilliant, and I think that is what makes this title quite special. Putting the funny glitches aside, which I actually think are left in intentionally, there is a lot more to this game than the title suggests. You read Derail Valley and you think this title is more about trains flying off tracks and odd buggy physics, but it really is not. I absolutely cannot stress that derailing the train is not the object of the title. As I pulled into the first station, not far from the depot, aside from the lack of other activity, it looked like a proper freight yard. And this is where I find this title excels. Instead of pulling up a menu to select the job you want and then have it all ready, you have to go over to the station and then look at the jobs available on the table. There are 3 types of jobs that I came across: shunting, freight hauling and logistics hauling. Each of them requires different licenses, and at the start you are fairly limited in what you can do. The vehicle you start with is primarily a shunter, so it would be better for the shunting operations, but it is also capable of hauling a few wagons from place to place. To select the job, you need to pick it up and place it into the machine, which will then print out the job information book. This has all the information required, including the wagon code, so you do not pick up the wrong consist, as well as where you need to pick it up from, where you need to take it, and exactly where you need to drop it off. From there, you need to find that consist, get your locomotive connected up to that consist, and then get it moving from the consist. So this includes not only the coupler, but attaching the brake lines too and making sure they are open. Again, it's this little bit of attention to detail that makes this title stand out. Oddly enough, I feel like that is the biggest selling point of the title, not the VR anymore, and I will talk a little bit more about this at the end of the review. On the other hand, you need to drop off your cargo in the right bit of track, or on the right bit of track should I say, and this in and of itself can be rather difficult to work out. So though it is on your job booklet, the destination I picked, for example, had many places the cargo could go to, so I had to use the charts to work out where exactly I wanted to go. After that, you go ahead and drop the book off into the machine and pick up your payment. Simple in concept, not quite as simple when it comes to execution. Graphically, this title looks very, very good. It is not quite up there at the absolute highest levels, but there is nothing really to actually complain about. The grass, bushes and trees give the environment life, and the wagons, locos and tracks look brilliant. In fact, what I noticed was anything in the immediate area around where you play looked really good, except for the cliff faces or the rocky mountainsides. Everything else is really well done, with the colours being bright and the modelling quite well done. I think what is missing are normal maps in places, or at least good ones. There were places where it looked like the texture needed some depth, and the albedo maps seemed to show depth, but then the light hit it and it looks flat. I actually think that adding in better normal maps would make the graphics go from very, very good, perhaps even to fantastic. Some places where I did notice normal maps rather easily were on the steam engine, for example. but even then they did not look so great, so there is work that needs to be done. I think a revamp in the textures and improvements overall in the resolution of them would go a long way. However, for what it is, there really isn't much I can complain about, as I said. One place that would benefit enormously from a normal map though would be the trackbed, for example. But I did notice that even on ultra settings, now this is where, going textures aside, the objects in the distance looked woefully bad or just did not render in. Now of course this is done for performance, but just adding in some really low poly trees in the distance would make a big difference to the realism of the title. Sounds are actually quite well done. All the sounds you would expect from a train are there, although I would like a two-tone horn or a whistle. That is just me though. I think that the sound of the wheels pushing against the rails as you go around the corner is slightly exaggerated, but it seems to be for a good reason. Given some of the locations around the map, that noise would be a helpful warning in telling you that your train is getting a little too fast, the weight is unloading on one side, time to slow down before you go flying off the edge of a cliff. This nicely jumps into the physics, which are actually really well done. The locos have different amounts of power, the wagons feel heavy, and overall it feels like you are hauling a train, not just something that looks like one but feels nothing like a train. It is clear that the developers have thought about the handling system in the title. Driving the shunter, for example, felt like anything more than two wagons was causing it to work fairly hard, whilst the steam loco was a whole different experience, especially considering how much harder a steam locomotive is to drive in real life. I think that they have balanced that experience with engaging gameplay quite well. The in-game handbook comes in very handy for that engine. With the steam engine, you really had to keep yourself alert to the steam levels, the firebox, the water injectors, the steam ejectors, the blower, and then also try to watch out for the speed on the mountain passes and make sure you had the point set right. That is where I found the best experience in Derail Valley for certain. Of course, there are more features in this game too, but I will not be showing you all of them, as not to spoil the title as you work your way up. But having tested them, I can say that one in particular is extremely useful when you purchase it. Oh, yes, purchases. To unlock new products, they need to be purchased from a shop using the money you have earned. So this is really nice because it gives you more of a reason to earn money than just to refuel and maintain your locomotive, which, by the way, also needs to be done at dedicated roundhouses or station yards. One downside I found about the title is that the world felt incredibly lonely. Wherever I went, there were signs of life, but everything was static. I never saw another train moving around, and whilst that makes sense due to the single-track railways, a signalling system and AI trains would be a massively welcome addition to the title. The world feels lived in, but not alive, and that is a shame. I did come across a few little bugs to do with grabbing items. That's another downside. For example, I managed to drop the light into the firebox when it was not lit, and then I could not pick it up at all, no matter what I tried. There were also the odd terrain glitches, and textures that do not quite line up, and some collision boxes, like that of the coal in the tender of the steam engine, they need to be addressed. Overall, Derail Valley is a breath of fresh air in a sim genre that is starting to lose some value due to no real expansion of gameplay. Whilst titles such as Train Sim World provide extremely realistic routes and vehicles, they do not give much in the way of engaging gameplay. This is on the opposite side. The world is entirely fictional, but the gameplay is extremely engaging, and it does not lose anything in not having the real world locations. Honestly, I think if there was a workshop in this, someone needs to get to work on building something like, I don't know, the Isle of Sodor, complete with a bunch of sentient engines. I give this title, at this point in time, a solid 70 out of 100. Improvements do need to be made as development progresses, but there is a lot already that gives this title plenty of promise. And for the price, it is really, really good. I would like to see better textures, some distance objects, maybe a couple of more locomotives such as a steam shunter, and a world that feels alive. But aside from that, the title has great gameplay in it, and it is just a type of train simulator you could play for hours on end. I have no doubt that when this title is finished, it has the potential to be a 90+ scoring title. As I said, for the current price at the time of this recording, I would say it is worth a purchase for anybody who is interested in trains. And if you want to see me create a series, please let me know in the comments below. Again, thank you to the developers for supplying a review copy, and a well done to you on development. I am looking forward to seeing what more is added to this title. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.